Mike Lee, always good to join us. Does a great job. NBA senior writer for Yahoo Sports. Great follow as well. Yahoo Sports NBA. And, of course, at Mr. Michael Lee, kind enough to join us on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Talk a little NBA draft right around the corner. Put a bow on a very boring NBA Finals. How you been, Michael?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. All right, let's just put a quick little bow on the NBA Finals. Man, I'll tell you, that was just throw a wet blanket on that. Listen, that Finals was over after Game 1. I guess you can say in hindsight. I don't think it affects LeBron's legacy. I think the people that are saying that is just ludicrous. Listen, great players get swept. Great players lose in 5. How much more did you want them to do? But is it when you look at this Finals, what are we going to remember this Finals for? What J.R. Smith did, or the fact that Golden State just went right through Cleveland in 4?
We will see that the Western Conference Finals was the real finals, and that the Eastern Conference representative, unless it was going to be Boston with healthy Kyrie or Gordon Hayward, was not going to be an intriguing matchup. The Warriors were the most talented team in the league. They didn't play like it all year until they had to, and that's really what it is. There was no serious battle between the East versus West. It was just whether the Warriors just wanted to get their act together at the nick of time, and they did. There was never a moment of drama. There was never even a period where you feared that the Warriors weren't going to win the series, even in a competitive Game 1. If the Cavs had won Game 1, it just would have meant they would have been done in 5 or maybe 6. But there was never a reason to doubt that the Warriors weren't going to win the series. They were so much better than the Cavaliers, who were it just speaks to the abomination that the Eastern Conference is. It's just not up to par with what's coming from the West. And, the East needs to step it up. It's been like this for almost 20 years. The East really needs to step it up.
Yeah, well, it's easier said than done, right? When you look around the Eastern Conference, we see what happens with Toronto come playoff time. Washington.
Yeah, but we also see what happens in the off season when the Bulls trade Jimmy Butler to the West, and when the Pacers trade Paul George to the West. And obviously they improved by getting Victor Oladipo, but these teams in the East aren't really trying.
Yeah.
They're not trying to build competitive teams. They're all conceding everything to LeBron and just letting him, reign over them without really putting up much of a fight. You see in the West, the Warriors built a powerhouse, but that didn't stop Houston from saying, we're going to go for it. We're going to try to get Chris Paul. We're going to try to do whatever we can to build a team that can beat them. They pushed them to 7 games. Now, the Eastern teams, they went to 7 games with the Cavaliers because it was such a bad team. It was not a really good team. LeBron is just an awesome player, and he was able to will them to those victories. But the Eastern Conference is just not up to the challenge of trying to really compete for championships.
Okay.
I mean, how many teams in the East have you taken seriously as a championship contender over the last 8-9 years? It's whatever team LeBron
is. But hold on a second. Let me counter something you said, because I'm curious. So you almost make it seem, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, that they are content to let LeBron and Cleveland just go through. It's almost like there's malpractice on some of these GMs in the Eastern Conference.
There is. There is.
But why is that then? Because
they're going to generate money anyway. Most of the teams in the East are in pretty nice markets, so the fans are going to come no matter what. So you look at the Knicks; they still sell out those games just because it's the Knicks. The Nets still get a decent fan base, even though they haven't tried to put out a competitive team for at least 3 years. So the owners don't have the incentives necessarily to try to go for it. And it just seems like the more innovative, aggressive owners are out west, and there doesn't seem to be that sort of passion, from the teams in the East to really put forth competitive teams, to really go for it, to take risks, to make trades. The one thing I liked about what happened out west is that even though the Thunder, the experiment didn't work out with Carmelo and Paul George, but they went for it.
Right.
The Timberwolves, they got to the playoffs with Jimmy Butler. They didn't win the title, but they went for it. The Houston Rockets obviously went for it. Teams are going for it. Teams in the East are just sitting on their hands.
But then,
and
yeah. But then you bring up some valid points. But then you always have that argument from people that'll say, well, then what's the point of even being a 7th or 8th seed? Because you're stuck in, quote, purgatory. So you can go for it in your 7th and 8th seed, you win 47, 48 games, or do you sit there and not field a competitive team and hope you can get a high draft pick? It's like, there's the rub. It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Maybe, but I think it'd be nice if some team tried. I'll give the Brooklyn Nets credit. that it was a dumb decision to trade all those draft picks to the Boston Celtics. But at least they're like, you know,
they played hard this year, though. They played hard.
I'm just saying in terms they went for it with the KG Paul Pierce trade. It was a bad trade, but they did it. They did at least try. And when I look at the Eastern Conference over the last 10 so years, I'm trying to find the teams that don't have LeBron James that actually tried.
No, it's hard to do.
To go for it, to really say we're going to try to win a championship, not just get to the playoffs and be a team that might win when we get there, but to really go for it. And if you look at the East over the last couple of years, there have not been very many teams that have raised their hand and said we're going for it. We're trying to go win a championship. How many owners in the Eastern Conference can honestly tell their fans that each year they're trying to compete for a championship, not for a playoff berth, for an actual championship, and then flip that? And how many teams out West say that to their fans and really try to convince them and actually make the moves to at least say that they're trying to do something about it?
So
it's really been, to me, it's been one of the more deflating aspects of competitiveness, you know, over the last couple of years, that the East has not really tried.
No, I mean, listen, and then we see that, as you alluded to, there's zero competitiveness, and then the balance, all the great teams, or at least, you know, the very good, the great, they all lie or reside in the Western Conference. Then with all that being said, you go by what you're talking about, does it, in your eyes, in your estimation, more likely than LeBron James decides, well, if I can't beat him, let me join him and let me go to the Western Conference?
Well, I guess if he can go and assemble, you know, his own super team in LA, you know, with Kawhi and Paul George and whoever else wants to come aboard, maybe that's something that he could do. It would be sad though, because then I guess you would basically open the door for Boston to sort of run off with the East, or maybe Philly can come up and maybe they get lucky this summer and add some pieces that can propel them as well. But it would just be fun to see teams actually, you know, compete and try to go for it. That's one thing people ask if the Warriors are bad for the NBA, and I say not really.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
They force teams to actually try
Step
to make
up.
an effort to compete.
I agree.
And you saw it. You saw it happen in the West. Teams out in the West were like, you know what, you are the best team, but we're coming for you. They didn't succeed, but they tried. And if I'm looking at the East, Boston definitely tried. The injury sort of, you know, hurt them this year. You know, Kyrie and Gordon Hayward, I think if they were healthy, they probably get to the NBA Finals, but that was just some bad luck. But I don't see other teams actually doing anything. Like Toronto was like, yeah, we're gonna go for it. We're coming for LeBron. But what did they really do? They changed their offensive scheme and gave some of their, you know, draft picks more minutes. But they didn't really go for it in terms of making a really serious talent upgrade. So I think that's where you kind of have to draw the line and say, well, how serious are teams about really, you know, putting forth a championship caliber team and not just a team that can be entertaining.
But then what happens when you have a team, say like the Sixers, where everyone's clamoring, you have to go to LeBron, you have to go and get LeBron, where everyone knows if you do that, then obviously, you know, you're going to have to break the bank, or even down the road, other teams that maybe, again, forget about trading because he's going to opt out. But what if you're a team in the Eastern Conference and you're putting all your eggs in the LeBron James basket and it doesn't work out? Then you're basically stuck you're basically back at point A again.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened before. I mean, I remember the Washington Wizards try to go all in for Kevin Durant, even though he had no interest in playing at home. And then when he didn't come, they wound up swinging and missing on every free agent they signed that summer, and they're still paying the price for it now, and they've regressed because they couldn't make that move. They couldn't move forward. So, you know, it's a tough position to be in. I think hopefully they have other options or plan Bs. But I think if you're the 76ers, first thing you got to do is actually hire a general manager, you know, and then try to, you know, maybe you can talk to the Spurs about what's up with Kawhi. Maybe you can make a move for him. But I think they actually have to hire somebody, a decision maker in place before, you know, they can really make a serious move. Yeah.
So this is an issue then. When you think about it, LeBron James can really set off a major domino effect here for the next, say, 2, 3, 4 years, depending upon if he opts out and where he might land.
That's what he's been doing. You know, that's what he does. I mean, he changes everything. You know, the minute he decides to go somewhere, all the dominoes fall apart and fall in place. I remember doing a piece after LeBron signed with Cleveland 4 years ago, and just about how like 20 players were affected by that decision. and then you go from there, and because teams made trades to either clear cap space to get him, and then players moved because he went here and he went. It was just such a domino effect that's sort of what LeBron does. Everybody sort of has a holding pattern, waiting to see what he does, and then the league can actually operate. I don't know if he's going to take as long as he has in the past, because I'm not sure what the motivating factors of his decision is. He says it's going to be his family, not necessarily going to be basketball. I think we all kind of obsess over the ring chase and say, well, he's got to get more rings to be in the conversation with the greats.
I don't. I know people do, but I don't.
I don't think he's in that place. I think he knows that if he retires as the all-time leading scorer, he retires as the first guy with 40,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, 10,000 assists, he'll be able to make an argument for himself, just based off the wonderful statistics, glowing statistics. And people can throw that in your face all day and say, well, he got 3 rings, but his teams were never up to par, blah 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 blah. And I don't know if that's his obsession right now, ring chasing, because he's sort of at a untouchable stage in his career, an unburdened stage in his career, where people can say whatever they want, but everybody knows where he stands as one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, and listen, I agree with you, because at the end of the day, nobody knows what he's going to do. He's so calculated. He already looks 2, 3, 4 steps ahead, 2, 3, 4 moves, which usually the guys that are pretty meticulous and methodical with their approach, that's what they do. If I backed you in a corner right now and said, okay, it's June 18th, talk to me in another 2 months, where does he wind up? Your gut.
My gut is going to be wrong, but my gut says he stays in Cleveland.
And it's funny you say that, because that's what my gut says, the same thing. I think there's 6 teams that really believe they have a shot, but I think at the end of the day, because you still don't know what's going to go on Thursday. Nobody knows. Because of the draft and what they might do with their draft pick. But I tend to, and if he does that, I'm telling you right now, the teams that were putting all their eggs in one basket, they better have a plan B, C, and D.
Absolutely, and you're going to need one, because there's one thing that isn't discussed a lot, and one of the things that I was thinking about when it comes to LeBron staying in Cleveland is he eventually wants to own an NBA team. And if he plays, 4 more years, or 5 more years with the Cavaliers, retires, and he moves over and he decides to buy an NBA team, wouldn't Dan Gilbert just be willing to say, you know what, I'm not ever going to make as much money as I did with LeBron not on my team, so I'll just go ahead and sell the franchise when it's at its peak value. I'll let LeBron have it, and then he can go on and compete with Michael off the court, as an executive, as opposed to, on the court, with legacy talk that way. So I think that ownership could be something in play for him that he's looking at beyond what we're thinking. Because I think we're thinking small when we're talking about rings and all of that stuff.
Bigger picture.
I think he's looking at being a mogul, and being somebody.
The brand.
People that they can admire from what he's able to accomplish off the court as well as what he does on the floor. And I think moving from player to owner would be something that would be a boss move that a lot of guys would want to envy.
Yeah, see, when you're talking just regular NBAs, I'll let you get out of here, you're Michael Lee. But when you bring that to the table, now I refer to you as Mr. Michael Lee, because that's outside. That is outside the box thinking right there, my friend.
That's right.
All right, listen, appreciate you jumping on. Enjoy the draft. Hopefully we can talk next week, and maybe we'll dive into that a little bit, or who knows what's going to happen the 29th and free agency and everything. Like you said, all the dominoes are going to fall into place here with LeBron and all these teams. So I appreciate a couple moments on a Monday, pal.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
You got it. Good stuff always from Michael Lee. Great follow on Twitter, Mr. Michael Lee.